You know that question that can just fill a room with anxiety? Did I lock the door? For so many families with aging loved ones, that one little question can bring up some really big fears about memory and independence. Well, today, we're going to dig into what's really going on behind that question. And I think you'll find the answer is a lot simpler and, honestly, a lot more hopeful than you might think. So let's start with a story about a woman we're going to call Mrs. T. And the first thing you need to understand about her is this. She wasn't confused, not in the way we usually think about it. And she definitely wasn't being careless, not at all. In fact, she was trying so hard, focusing on all these little daily routines that had suddenly started to feel, well, huge. And that was the real kicker. It was this growing, awful panic that her own mind just wasn't a reliable partner anymore. That feeling of uncertainty, that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. So for Mrs. T, it would often start with a tearful late-night phone call to her daughter. She'd be absolutely convinced that she'd left her front door wide open. Now, she never actually had, but that didn't make the fear any less real for her. And you know what? It's a scene that plays out in so many homes every single night. Her daughter saw these signs and, of course, she worried. And maybe you've seen them too, right? The constant rechecking of the stove, asking over and over if the lights are off. These aren't just little quirks, they're signals. They're telling us that the internal system we all rely on to just get through the day is feeling some serious strain. Now, her daughter's mind went straight to dementia. Her doctor thought maybe it's just stress. But the real cause was something else entirely. Something much simpler, and in a lot of ways, much more solvable. You see, this wasn't about a failing memory. It was about a failing system. Okay, so here's the big idea. We've got to reframe what we mean by cognitive fog. It isn't always a disease. A lot of the time, it's just a disruption. It's like all the little cues in our home that silently guide our actions have suddenly gone quiet, leaving our routines without a map. This all comes from a field called applied behavior analysis, or ABA for short, and it shows us that most of our automatic actions happen in a super simple loop. First, there's an antecedent. That's just a fancy word for a cue, like grabbing your keys to leave the house. That triggers a behavior, like actually locking the door, and that leads to a consequence, like that feeling of safety. But what happens when that loop breaks, right? Maybe the cue is fuzzy, or that feeling of safety just never lands. The whole chain becomes fragile. And that anxiety we see, it's not memory loss itself. It's the brain's distress signal that a routine is broken. There's a link missing in the chain. And this isn't just some nice theory, by the way. The science really backs this up. A paper from 2023 points out that when we focus on the context, the environment around the person, not just what's going on inside their head, we can find some really powerful and practical solutions. Okay, so this brings us to the big one. The question that's probably been on your mind this whole time. Because let's be honest, it's the one that can keep us up at night. Let's just tackle it head on. It is so important to get this straight. The cognitive fog we're talking about is often situational. It can be triggered by a change in routine, stress, even new medications. And the good news is it can often be improved with some simple supports. Dementia, on the other hand, is a progressive neurological disease that absolutely needs a medical diagnosis. They are not the same thing. So if the problem is a broken behavioral loop, guess what? The solution is to rebuild it. And applied behavior analysis gives us this amazing practical toolkit to do just that. And we're not talking about anything complicated here. We're talking about things like simple visual cues, a little note on the door, something called chaining, which is just breaking big tasks into small, easy steps, reinforcement, which is all about celebrating that I did it moment, and environmental design, which basically means letting the home itself do the guiding. So what does this actually look like in the real world? Let's jump back to Mrs. T. Her daughter didn't try to fix her memory. Nope. Instead, she focused on fixing her environment. And check out how simple and brilliant these changes were. She got a smart lock that lit up with a green light when it was secure, a super clear visual cue. She put a little handwritten note on the door that said locked and safe, and she made a short, simple checklist to keep by the bed. And the results, it was incredible. Within a week, the late night phone calls just stopped. Mrs. T was sleeping through the night again. Her confidence came roaring back, not because her memory magically got better, but because her environment got clearer. The home itself became the solution. And this brings us to the most important part of all, how you can use these ideas, how you can turn that feeling of worry into a powerful tool for observation. You can basically become a detective for patterns. So start looking. When does the confusion seem to spike? Is it always in the evening? Is there one specific task that always triggers that checking behavior? Are there any clear signals that a job is done? Your observations are literally the key to unlocking a solution. Because here's the thing, once you see the pattern, once you spot that missing link in the behavioral loop, the solution often just reveals itself. It becomes so much clearer how you can shape the environment to bring that peace back into your home. So let's go all the way back to that first question. Did I lock the door? It's not a memory test, not even close. It is a deeply human cry for reassurance from a routine that's just lost its rhythm. And that's really the heart of it. This isn't about fighting a losing battle with memory. It's about becoming a thoughtful designer of a supportive world. So just think about it for a second. What's one small, simple change you could make in your loved one's environment that might bring a little more peace back into the picture?